Hi, and welcome to the Fiber Circus. I'm Elizabeth, your host. I'm coming to you from southern Indiana, and this is a podcast about knitting, spinning, dyeing, travel, and adventures in owning a fiber farm. This is episode 15. It is February 20th of 2019, and if you need to get a hold of me, all my contact details are below in the show notes right down there. And I am Spottedcircus on Ravelry, Instagram, and Facebook. So, thanks a lot for coming along this week. Hopefully you guys enjoy the fun. So, works in progress. I've mainly been working on two things this week, or these past 2 weeks actually, and I've been kind of monogamously knitting on some of them. So, I've started to make some progress finally. So, my first work in progress is the Suriously Holey by Stephen West. And you can see, it's finally getting bigger here. And here's where I was last week. Now, that doesn't look like a whole lot. Technically, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 8 rows. But I'm up to, I think, 200 plus stitches currently on my Seriously Holey, and this is in brioche. So, every row is worked twice across it. So, this dark colored yarn here is my Pacaboo yarn, which is an alpaca merino bamboo nylon yarn that I've hand dyed, and it's in the colorway Disco Lights, and it's a black with neon speckles in it. And then on the back is my brushed alpaca base, which I don't have any in the shop right now. I've been waiting for it to come in so that way I can get some more of it dyed up. And it is in the neon sprinkles colorway. So you can see I'm up to another set of holes here. Supposedly the end is getting nearer because I am on my second ball finally of the brush Surrey, and it says I'm going to use roughly 600 yards, and each of those balls is like 200-ish plus yards. So I started the new ball right about here. So I've got a ways to go technically. If I look at my sock yarn base, it's 400 yards, so I should use like a ball and a quarter, but I've still got all of this left. So I still have a little ways to go on that. But I'm in the brioche groove. I know what I'm doing when I start working on it, and I haven't made any major screw-ups that I've noticed at least. But this should block out really kind of pretty, I think. In theory, I would love to see it done by my first vending event, which is in a few weeks, but I know that's not going to happen realistically. So I may just kind of hang it up as is to kind of show off. So that is currently living in a bag. It's getting a little bit tighter in it. It's getting a little more full. But it's my squid bag from Star Knits. And I got this at SSK last year. And I love it. It's a great bag. It's got pockets in it. And it has a nice drawstring closure. And it actually closes all the way, so there's no way the kitten can get in and sneak into it. So, great bag from Star Knits. The other project that I've been working on is my Dangerfield Island cardigan by Tanis Gray. Let's see if I can pull you up a picture of what it's supposed to look like. There we go. So Dangerfield Island by Tanis Gray. And I'm working on it with Paintbox Simply Chunky yarn, which is a completely acrylic yarn. I chose it because it was very cost effective, which I did like. Because for a chunky weight cardigan, it takes quite a few yards to do. So, and cables tend to eat up that yardage as well. So last week I was right here. So I'd basically just done the collar and that was about it. And now I've done the majority of the cables here on the back. And then on my front panels, I've done, this is one of the sides, and you can see there's my raglan shaping for my sleeves. And then this side, it's got its cables, and I'm just getting ready. I've got to think 2 more rounds, and then I can split for the sleeves. So, and then I'll just be working on the body. So I guess if it could stretch out a little bit more, it would. But it's going pretty well. It's reverse stockinette for the body, which I can't say that I'm a big fan of because I don't like to purl. But the cables really do stand out quite a bit on it. And it definitely blows out the camera quite a bit. But it's actually a pretty deep purple with just some slight hints of black to it. And I'm knitting this on size 10.5 needles, which is also why it's going somewhat rapidly. And these are Zing needles by Knitter's Pride. You know, and they're metal, so they slide along pretty nice. The points have been pretty good on them. And I do have these really cute little cat head stitch markers. They're just little bitty kitties. And those are telling me where all my increases and decreases are. And after 2 more rounds, I think it is, I get to pull most of those out, which will be really kind of nice, because sliding along constantly takes forever. I'm working on my, let's see, this will be the 3rd ball of yarn right now that I'm working on. So, it's pretty good progress from last week, from, 2 weeks ago. I've done quite a bit on it. So, I'm still cruising along. I have a self-imposed deadline of end of April to finish it by, because I need to get imaginary points for the SSK retreat. So, I'm cruising along on it. I think there's a total of like 10.5 to 11 balls, so I'm a third-ish of the way through. I think once I separate for the sleeves, it's going to go faster, because I don't have to think about doing my raglan increases and decreases then. But I think that there's cables going down the sleeves. No, there's not cables going down the sleeves. So, in theory, it should go somewhat rapidly. And that's living in this lovely little bag, which you guys have been seeing pretty much every single episode of the podcast. And it's a Bags by Awesome Granny bag with these cute little firefly catching kids on it. And it's going pretty well. I've been cruising along on that, which is nice. I didn't really pull out my Dust to Snow wrap by Helen Stewart at all this week, because I was cruising on the sweater, so I figured as long as I had that mojo, I shouldn't really stop with it. So, that's all my works in progress. Cast on. I haven't cast on anything new. And I have one finished object, but it's not here because it's already been mailed out. So I'll put a picture of it up here. I did do a machine knit lace scarf for a silent auction at the Pennsylvania Alpaca Breeders Association alpaca show that's coming up. I think the first weekend in March. And I did it with some of my alpaca silk. It's alpaca with mulberry silk fingering weight that I hand dyed. So I did it on my machine. So after a few false starts, I got it going and it went along pretty well. So that'll be at the silent auction. So keep an eye out if you happen to be in that Pennsylvania area and you want to go bid on it. It's a really nice drapey scarf. One skein ended up giving me a scarf that was about 7.5 inches wide by 70 inches long. So it was a pretty good sized scarf. And it's very, very drapey. So that's my only real finished object. In machine knitting, that I obviously did that scarf. And I did teach a class here, not last weekend, but the weekend before, I think it was. And it went well. We discovered certain yarns that didn't quite go through the machines as planned. And we're going to have to really watch how a mill spins a yarn in order to get it to go through the machine. If it's too loose or too fuzzy, the machine, it's a fight with it to get it to go through. So, it was an adventure. Let's see, going on to spinning. I did do some spinning this week. The Rolags that I think I showed on last week's podcast, I decided I was going to spin them up. So, this is yarn from some Rolags from Dye Candy, who's out of the UK. And it ended up being a 2-ply, probably a worsted weight, roughly about 150 yards. Let's see if it'll focus a little bit better on it. I did spin this on my Spinolution worker bee. And it was interesting. I had never spun Rolags before. And I don't know that I'm really going to spin them again. I really loved the way that they looked in the packaging and the way that they looked. But they just... I don't know. I don't really think that Rolags are meant to have artsy bits in them. The whole point of a Rolag is to spin a woolen style. So as you're drafting, the fibers are basically wrapped out around each other. And as you're drafting, you're pulling out this tube to essentially trap air within it and to make it a lofty, lightweight yarn. And this is a lightweight yarn, but it's kind of hard to draft things like bits of silk noil when you're trying to draft forward, because they don't really have a staple per se. There was also some sections that were basically 100% Firestar. and that ended up extremely rough. So it's definitely not against the skin soft, and I kind of thought it should have been because this was a merino, fake cashmere, silk noil, and Firestar blend. But it's kind of scratchy for me. I mean, it may make an okay hat. I may end up just selling the yarn. It ended up a little more muted than what I'd kind of expected because the teal did bleed slightly when I washed the yarn. So it was an interesting experience. I can say I've tried to spin roll eggs. I wasn't really a huge fan of the roll eggs per se. But, you know, they're really popular right now. I don't personally make and sell them because I think they're way too labor intensive. But the yarn turned out pretty. I mean, there's nothing per se wrong with the yarn. But it's just, I don't know. It's hard wearing is a good term for it. It might make some good fingerless gloves. I mean, my hands could tolerate the way that it feels. So, yeah. So I got about 150 yards, roughly, of probably a DK to worsted in this. So, it was fun. It was good to actually sit down and do some spinning, you know, and get some things done, which felt kind of nice. And acquisitions, I haven't bought anything these last 2 weeks because I've been pretty busy with other stuff, which is a good thing. And then travel. So I've had to write all my travel down on a separate thing because it's getting to be a bit more to keep track of these days. My class that was supposed to be this weekend at Rolling Oaks Alpaca Ranch in Makanda for machine knitting's been canceled. Unfortunately, we just had one person sign up, and that really didn't make it worthwhile for me to drive down there for the fuel. So we're probably going to try to reschedule it later on in the summertime when it's a little bit nicer for people to travel. So that means my next upcoming event is going to be March 14th through 17th, and it's the Alpaca National Halter Show out in Denver, Colorado at the Stockyard complex. I'll be out there vending. I'll be doing demos all weekend. I'll have probably some of my machines with me set up and working, spinning wheels, drum carters, yarn, blending fibers, and all sorts of stuff if you want to stop by and say hi. It is free to the public, so come out. There'll probably be between 500 and 600 alpacas there, I'm guessing, for the show. So it'll be a really good time. And then March 30th, I have a one-day machine knitting class in Bloomington, Indiana, through Bloominglabs. Yeah, Bloominglabs is what it's called. If you want more information on that, get a hold of me. It's going to be just a one-day introduction to machines, you know, what it is they can do, and give them kind of a tryout type of a thing. Then April 19th and 20th, I have the fiber event here in Greencastle, Indiana, and that's a fiber festival, and I'll be set up there with all my goodies, and I need to start dyeing for that pretty badly because I haven't started dyeing anything at all. And looking in my trailer the other day, I've been pulling a lot of things to knit for me and or to turn into machine knit things, so I definitely need to do some restocking there. May 13th through the 20th, I'm going to be shearing out in Colorado, doing some sorting out there for a large farm, so I'll be out that entire week. Then June 7th through the 9th, I'll be back for the Estes Park Wool Market in Estes Park, Colorado. I'm also teaching a half-day course there on Corespinning and how to make a fun functional yarn via Corespinning. And I do have a coupon if somebody would like to take the class at a discounted price. I only have one of them. So if you'd like to go, get a hold of me and let me know. The class is on Friday morning, if I remember right. I'd have to check the website, but I'm pretty sure it's Friday morning. So that will be a good class. Then the 22nd and 23rd of June, I'll be down in Makanda, Illinois at Rolling Oaks Alpaca Ranch for a 2-day Fibery Fun class. And the Fibery Fun class is a great introduction to working with fiber if you haven't ever really done it before. What we'll do is go through how to select a good alpaca fleece for hand processing and what needs to go to a mill, how to wash fleece, how to dye fleece, and then you'll end up carding it with different blending fibers to see how the fibers change the properties of alpaca. We'll also probably do some dyeing of yarn and roving, possibly, or maybe some bamboo and Firestar. We haven't exactly set down what it is that we're going to dye all that weekend, but it's a really great introduction if you want to get your feet wet and just try out working with fiber. Then the 29th and 30th, I'm going to be doing a 2-day machine knit class down in It's just south of Lexington, Kentucky at River Hill Ranch, Surrey's. So that'll be a good class down there. Alvina has 2 machines that I've found and refurbished for her, and she has a really great business model for putting alpaca into production. So it'll be a good class down there with all the machine knitting goodness and fun. Then, let's see, July 17th through the 20th I'll be at the Super Summer Knit Together retreat hosted by the Knit Girls down in Nashville, Tennessee. There is a 1-day vending opportunity on the 20th, which is a Saturday, and in the afternoon the public can get in to see the vendors. And there's a lot of really good vendors besides just me, but of course I'm the fun one, so come see me first. But there's all sorts of vendors. Desert Vista Dye Works will be there. Miss Babs, Mustache Yarns, Hippie Chicks, and Whimsy Stick, not Hippie Chicks. Yeah, no, it's not Hippie Chicks, it's Hip Strings Fiber, and Whimsy Stitches, so it'll be a really good time. And concurrently running at the same time there in Nashville is also the AOA, so the Alpaca Owners Association's Natural Fiber Extravaganza. There's going to be classes and a vending event there along with a fleece show. There'll be some fashion shows going on there as well. And I will be teaching there on that Sunday on the 21st. And I'm teaching 2 classes, one of which will be Corespinning, and then the other class will be dyeing the alpaca rainbow. So we're going to take the majority of the natural colors of alpaca and over dye it with probably 5 or 6 different colors to see what does it look like when you dye brown with green, or when you dye brown with orange. You know, what happens to that color then? Because a lot of people get natural colored alpacas and then they say, well, I can't dye anything because it's a brown alpaca. You can dye brown alpaca, and there's certain colors that actually look really, really nice over brown. So it's going to be attempting to give people another opportunity to actually see how they can expand on their fiber offerings that they do. And then, so then the next thing would be SAF, which is in October, and it's towards the end of October in Asheville, North Carolina. So there's quite a bit of travel starting to come up right now for me. At some point in April, I have to actually shear my own alpacas, and that's when we start praying for no rain on a weekend, because I think I have 2 open weekends where I know I could get shearing done. So hopefully it doesn't rain one of those 2 weekends and we can finish it up. So that's the majority of my travel for this week. On to the farm update. There hasn't been much of a change with Maggie, unfortunately. We've been trying to get her up into her sling every day and do some muscle workout and rubbing some liniment in to try to help get some muscle tone restored with her. She puts down her legs, but she's not really putting weight on them. So we're going on, 2.5 to 3 weeks of this injury with her, and it's not looking that awesome right now. So I'm probably going to have to make some sort of a decision this week about what I'm going to do. You know, it's a tough decision because while she's eating and she can move her front legs, back legs are kind of essential to be able to walk. And if there is something that's physically cracked or a nerve issue up in there, then the way that she's starting to heal, she's not really showing pain per se, but she's holding her legs very far underneath her, and if it heals like that, then there's no way that she could be able to walk normally. So probably gonna have to make a decision about that this week, which kind of sucks. It's also been pretty muddy and gross, so I put down some new straw for the girls, and I'll put a video in here of the girls and their new straw. They seem to think that it's the best thing in the world and that they should try to take a bath in it. So the girls end up rolling around and just getting silly when you put down new straw. Even with new hay, sometimes you get them attempting to roll around in the hay when it's still in a bale form, which doesn't work so well. So we have a couple that are slightly walking hay bale looking right now. So I'm hoping that by the end of next month that some of that starts to fall off, because we really don't need all that hay in our fiber when we go to process it. So that's it for this week. Nothing too thrilling, I guess. I've done some spinning, some knitting. I'm getting ready. I need to get my button gear and start dyeing quite a bit. So I guess that's it for this week, and we will talk to you guys later on. Bye. nicely.